It's time to duel! Hey there! Alright! Yeah! So,
I just came off the back of criticizing Xenoblade Chronicles X on my Twitter.
neat! Should I look at that?
Don't bother. I'm probably gonna read each tweet for the
Alright.
podcast.
While we're talking about it, I wanted to make a joke. I wanted to play off like I'm upset with you, for delaying the podcast because of your game. I'm not upset about it, but I thought of a funny joke about it. I could be all like, well, one of us was letting their addiction to a game delay the recording of our podcast. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here doing the responsible thing, compiling tons of spreadsheets for Yu-Gi-Oh! I can't think of how to make the joke work. Say things out loud so you can hear them and how stupid they sound. Yeah, I am now working on a spreadsheet for all of the cards that the characters that aren't Yugi and Caillou have used.
You know, people are complaining about this game's writing, and you can complain about the writing all you want. It's still better than Doctor Who's.
Oh yeah. So yeah,
I
I start recording before the call starts in case we want to start the show right away.
Okay, let's start the show. Let's start the show officially. 3, 2.
Time Cats, go! Ultra regular edition. We're just regular Time Cats this week.
Yeah, because there was no Walking Dead, and this is the last Doctor Who.
And boy, what a last And boy, what a last Doctor Who for a while it was. Dear God.
Yeah, I was making a joke before we started the show about how say what you will about Xenoblade Chronicle X's bad writing. It's still better than Doctor Who.
I got what I wanted. They didn't explain what the hell was up with the last episode. The Time Lords knew they were putting the Doctor in a torture chamber for 4 billion years, but they never explain why, and he doesn't think to ask. He even tells Clara, who's not dead anymore, he even tells her, I didn't think to ask why they did that. I wanted to make them feel clever. Oh, okay!
I thought they said why they wanted to do that. I thought they said they put them in because they wanted the information for who the who.
Why does it matter? They're safe.
Well, apparently they feel that the hybrid will destroy them.
If the hybrid doesn't destroy them, the universe will. They're near the end of the time-space continuum. Literally nothing can get to them. They're completely and totally safe. They just made the last episode happen for no reason because they're a bunch of dumbasses. That makes sense.
And also, why can't they bring Clara back? I mean, the Time Lords have been able to bring back whoever they want, whenever they want. So now suddenly there's new rules in effect where the Time Lords can't undo. I mean, we know the Time Lords can undo fixed point in time. The Doctors made reference to the fact that it could be done if the Time Lords are still around, which they are now, so they could stabilize.
And how the hell could it be a fixed point in time if the Doctor has been AWOL for 4 billion years? Okay. All that shit I said last episode about my headcanon about how time worked in Doctor Who, that's not all hypothesis. The way time travel works on the show is most of the Doctor's exploits don't happen at all until they happen to him. Like occasionally things slip out, Harold Saxon and the Minister of War and all those things, but how could Clara's death be a fixed point in time when the Doctor hasn't been around from anyone else's perspective for 4 billion years? That doesn't make any sense. And plus, the Time Lords can do whatever the fuck they want, like you said. So yeah.
And now apparently, time locked Clara and
Ashilda or me or whatever.
Ashilda are now traveling through time in a diner that shaped after the appearance of the diner that Amy and Rory met the Doctor in when they went to the United States. And
I want to say that creative reuse of old props, except there's creative and then there's picking names out of a hat and just taking a dartboard and smashing the hat with the dartboard like this is just like
why would Clara even? I mean, why would Clara even choose to bring him to Utah and bring him to and bring him into that diner? I mean, is it because she knew about him and she wanted to see just how much of lost memory?
You know what? I didn't even think to question why this diner in this area in this region. I didn't think to question that. I was most of my criticisms towards Ashilda's new fancy TARDIS was negated because I was so excited that they were finally using the refurbished First Doctor console from that biopic.
Is biopic or biopic?
I don't even know. I've always said biopic. Aside from the paint job, this seems to be the TARDIS console from that documentary thing.
Yeah. Also, so with the revelations that Sarah, Clara, and Shilda are traveling through time together on their own. Again, this is another thing where why are they having that other Doctor Who spin-off and not having whatever the hell Clara and Shilda are up to? Why can't that be this Doctor Who spin-off?
The thing is, if they, okay, so they want to make a kid-friendly Doctor Who spin-off. I think that's what this is going to be, and I assume because things like K9 and Sarah Jane and the Sarah Jane Adventures has happened that they want to do that. You can't really get more kid-friendly than time travelers that are chronologically. It is not possible for either of them to die on their adventures. They're not. Well, maybe a Shilda, probably. No. Shilda is immortal, but like she could still like get vaporized or some shit. It's like because I was thinking, oh well, she was at the end of the universe, she can't die. But sorry, I was getting my head tied in knots because of the timey-wimey wall here going on, and none of this makes sense. So, but yeah, yeah, so it'd be pretty perfect for a kid-friendly Doctor Who spin-off, I guess. But no, they're going with class. I think I haven't seen it.
They could make them lesbians though and have it more.
I haven't seen anything new about Class since the first time we talked about it on the show, so I don't even know if that's still happening. K9's getting a movie apparently. That's happening. I don't know how or why it's happening. It's not even OG K9. They're redesigning K9. So like, I don't even know what this has to do with Doctor Who. It's like, what? I'm confused. And I think Omega is gonna be in it from the villain from the Three Doctors Anniversary Special.
Oh my god.
Well, his name was spelled Omega, but apparently it's pronounced Omega.
Oh, Omega, yeah. Yeah, why would you pronounce Omega? Oh my god.
I don't know, but that's how I heard it pronounced pertaining to this character. And speaking of ridiculous Time Lord villains, Rassilon is back, but they couldn't afford James Bond, so they cast some guy, and they didn't even mention that he was Rassilon for like 15 minutes. It's like, okay, so Time Lords can apparently recognize each other through regenerations because of MacGuffin radiation or whatever, but the audience doesn't have the same privilege. I could not tell this was Rassilon until he raised up the glove, and then I thought, well, maybe that's just something that all Time Lord presidents have. Like you give all your presidents a power glove and say, here, what happened?
Well, I intended to talk about this game, Xenoblade Chronicles X, and right now what happened to me is actually, which in my opinion is probably one of the bad design choices in the game. I basically have to restart to my last save point right now. And let me get I bet you I didn't save it all during this. So I bet you all the experience I just got from fighting all those alligators is gone.
Anyway, so Rassilon. Yeah. So, contrary to his last appearance, this guy is a meek, pathetic little asshole, and not threatening or intimidating at all. And yeah, and basically he's about to kill everyone, and everyone just stares him down like, "What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Just shut up and give us the power glove. It's so bad." And they take away his power glove, and the Doctor is all epic. He's all like, "Get off my planet!" It's just, and like he.
Also, why is Rassilon still the president?
I want to say it's because he's the most powerful of them all, but he's obviously not, because he's clearly regenerated, which means the Master actually did successfully kill him. So and plus, this incarnation of Rassilon is definitely a much weaker person than the previous we've seen, and like he ain't shit when he ain't got that glove. So.
Which is also
everything's named after him. It's like Rassilon's deal. Pretty much everything on Gallifrey is called the blank blank of Rassilon.
Yeah, he was one of the founding Time Lords, along with
the Doctor.
Yeah, there's some speculation that the Doctor.
I thought that was canon. I thought that was canon. My mistake. It could be like a George Lucas thing, like it was written in a book somewhere and it's sort of canon, but not really. But maybe it is kind of a little until Disney buys it and decides it's not. So I recently found out that the reason the unedited Star Wars trilogy hasn't been published on Blu-ray yet is because Fox owns the distribution rights to the original cuts. The movies themselves belong to Lucasfilm and now are under the ownership of Disney, but the original theatrical cut is owned by Fox, and apparently their ownership of A New Hope's theatrical cut extends for perpetuity, so they own it forever.
I don't think they could. Well, they can own something forever.
Apparently, you can own something forever. That's why I pronounce perpetuity that way. I usually pronounce it perpetually, but apparently it is actually a legal term, perpetuity. You could just own shit forever. Star Wars' production negotiations were incredibly complex. Basically, Fox didn't want to make the movie. They thought it was a bad idea, and no one wanted a science fiction movie. And Lucas was able to get the movie published and keep the entire merchandising rights himself. But he apparently gave the entire distribution rights to the movie to Fox. Apparently. So at this point, Disney owns like a bunch of stuff that leads to complicated negotiations with Fox, which means that it'd be absolutely perfect for them to buy the rights to Doctor Who, which there are some rumors that they've been trying to do. Because Doctor Who also has some confusing rights issues with Fox. So
Doctor Who seems very Disney.
Yeah, I think the David Tennant era is actually airing on Disney, or is going to at some point.
Yeah, I think it has.
Yeah, that seemed absolutely perfect when I first heard it. But then I remembered Devil Planet and Midnight. Well, I think
actually, the Devil Planet works. Have you?
What?
The Devil Planet worked with Disney's.
Oh yeah, right. I forgot. One of the Fantasia movies had very clear depiction of the devil in it, and that was okay with them. So, all right.
Disney has always had religious connections to it too. So the idea of having the terrible devil in there, Satan there, and be overcome is very much fitting with their image.
But yeah, once I found out about the Star Wars thing, and with the rumors that Disney is interested in buying Doctor Who, which are just rumors, there's nothing official I've ever heard about that, and I think BBC would be very unwilling to sell. But at this point, I think Disney should just buy Fox. Like, the two should merge.
No.
Okay,
yeah. Now that I'm saying it out loud, that sounds like a bad idea. We have.
That's so anti-competition right there. There's no reason why those two organizations.
You're right. It's too much power. There are other companies competing with Disney and Fox, but if Disney and Fox did merge, then
if Disney and Fox did merge, it would probably be Fox buying them out, not the other way.
Yeah, I'm not clear who has more money in this situation.
Well, I'm speaking from an ideological standpoint. Rupert Murdoch of the Fox News organization
is a dick. He's just a huge dick.
Yeah, but he's pretty much bought up all those different various kinds of learning channels they had, like Discovery and Learning Channel and National Geographic. He's basically bought all of those things now so that he can have so he can have a monopoly on
Disney owns practically everything.
On basically educational programs.
Yeah, at this point, yes, I am really against giant companies merging and becoming even more powerful. I don't think Disney and Fox should be any more closely associated than they are, and I would greatly appreciate it if they were actually farther apart. But Fox owns a bunch of crap that rightfully belongs to Disney at this point, and for some reason they don't want to share, and they're being bigger dicks about this than NBC was. And NBC was the first network that Walt Disney created cartoons for. And for a couple of decades, NBC owned the rights to Walt Disney's first cartoon character, and Disney wanted it back, so they traded the sportscaster for him, and now they can release Oswald the Lucky Rabbit DVDs.
And they had him in
Epic Mickey. That was actually most of the reason why they wanted him.
Yeah, that was why.
I wish Epic. I'm gonna now check if Epic Mickey is on PC yet. I know the second one is.
I think it is. Oh, you're right.
I was really interested in Epic Mickey, but console games are so difficult to get running. You have to actually own the console, and the TV, and you have to bother setting it up. And
I find it the other way around. I find PCs cumbersome.
Oh yeah, PCs are just as frustrating in different ways. For a console, you have to have the console, the TV, the game, and the desire to set all that shit up. And with PC, you need to spend a lot of money on a bunch of confusing computer components. And
well, initially, one of the selling points of the consoles was that they were easy to set up. There's the fact that you could just plug in and play.
So at this point, the Wii U is actually the one I'd pick out the fastest of the game consoles, because it combines the best elements of a handheld with a game console. So
it's not as easy to start up as say old NES or Super NES
Oh,
console,
yeah.
which but yeah, being able to one thing I can tell you is, there's been a lot of pushback about recently about saying about how people always say that video games are for children, and a lot of people nowadays are now saying, especially the generation that grew up with video games, are saying no, they're not. They're fun for all ages. And as my eyesight deteriorates and my back it deteriorates and just my health in general deteriorates, I can frankly, let me tell you, video games were made for kids. I'm sorry. I still enjoy them, but let's be honest here. I do not have as easy a time playing them as I did as a child. And one of the reasons is my body just isn't made for sitting on the floor anymore to get close, so I can be close enough to the TV to see it, and my eyes aren't good enough to see it from a distance.
I don't think I was ever comfortably able to play video games or do anything.
Yeah, that's a good point. That was me only speaking from a perspective from a more
most movies, TV shows, video games, card games, most of these things, the things that I enjoy, the things that most of my friends enjoy, most of these things are designed for children to be consumed by children and to be bought by parents for children. That doesn't mean that they can only be enjoyed by children. It just that's what they are.
It just means that once your eyesight goes, good luck.
Yeah. Let's see.
Oh, the joys of getting old and not being able to do the things you used to.
Let's see.
I'm gonna be 30 next month.
Happy birthday!
No, don't give me happy birthday.
I'm gonna be.
I don't tell people when my birthday.
Oh, right. Okay. I'm not gonna tell you when my birthday is either. It's this month.
Oh, happy birthday! I guess.
I don't care. I used to absolutely despise my birthday and the fact that I was born, but I'm happy to be alive now. So I haven't been happy about anything in so many years, and it's very confusing thing. The whole thing is very confusing. Like today I was waiting for a taxi and I was upset about having to wait for stuff. Usually when I have to wait for shit in the last year or 2 or 6, I've been all like, everything hurts and I want it to be over and I don't want to go home because home equals screaming, yelling, and misery, and I want to kill myself. And then I get home and then everything's still horrible. But now for the last couple of months, I've been happy. Now I'm upset when I have to wait for stuff, not because everything hurts and I want it to be over, but because some stuff hurts and I just want to get home and hang out with my friends. Everything's good. I'm very happy. Also, my toes are okay. Today I had an appointment with my foot doctor guy to look at my feet. So apparently, my toenails were like really ingrown. Like really, really ingrown. I apparently did not actually know what healthy feet are supposed to look like, and 3 days after my procedure to remove them, I took the bandages off, and it's like half the nail was gone. Apparently, this is what a healthy foot's supposed to look like, and holy shit! If I had waited another couple of months, I might not have toes anymore. Just shit. How did I let this happen? I am not good at.
As someone who has various problems with their feet, I can I can sympathize. Is that a thing?
We're gonna go with that. So
yeah, we're gonna go.
So there's still some. Okay, so like my toes are healing nicely, and now my biggest problem is that one of the ones that didn't have the ingrown toenail removed, the toenail's still there, but in my attempts to remove it, I've cut too much of the nail myself, so now they can't do anything about that. I might cut this whole bit of the podcast out because it's about nails, and people are grossed out by that.
No, it's
okay.
Fine.
You know, I really should stop worrying about the podcast not being what I consider good, because every episode of Word Funk, my favorite podcast, they're all like, "Oh, this is gonna be the worst podcast ever. We're just talking about computer stuff," and I can't think of other examples of stuff they complain about that they don't like. But I actually really like their podcast. So I guess the worse it seems our podcast is, the better it actually is.
Not necessarily. Our podcast could just be garbage.
Yeah, it could be, but Word Funk constantly thinks that their podcast is garbage, and it's my favorite podcast. So, if we think our podcast is garbage, but our fans...
It depends on... but there's the thing. They actually have an audience...
Yeah, so, not yet. So...
Yeah,
well, see, the thing is, they all had a fan base before their podcast started, so that's where our difference is. I'm still developing... my Yu-Gi-Oh web show, and hopefully I can get that started, and
They see this show, you're not gonna have a fan base.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I'm sorry. This self-deprecating.
No,
Sorry.
self-deprecation is good. Like I said, WordPunk constantly says their podcast is horrible, and it's not. So
Self-deprecation.
basically, what I'm saying is our opinions of our own show don't really matter. What matters is if we have viewers and if they like us. We don't have viewers yet, or maybe we do. I don't know. I don't really pay enough of attention. I really should start paying more attention to shit. I'm not good at this. I've really just been focusing all of my attention on card games, which very few people have told me to stop doing, but I still feel really weird about. Like, maybe I shouldn't be focusing this much on card games. But I can't really help what my brain chooses to focus on. I'm working on getting set up with a neurologist, and I told my psychiatrist about it. Like, hey, so I might be addicted to card games. We don't live in a world where card games blended military warfare, right? Oh, okay, we don't. So an addiction to card games isn't healthy. All right.
Hold on, I'm just playing video games throughout this entire.
That's okay.
I wish I had a video capture card so at least people could watch. Although I think that would bring up issues with Nintendo. I don't think Nintendo would like that.
It doesn't matter what Nintendo thinks because of the fair use thingy.
It would if we put it on YouTube because
hasn't YouTube started with that thing that Jim Sterling told us about?
Yes, but Nintendo is in a partnership project with YouTube in regards to that, and you have to. Well, I don't know if you have to. I don't know how the whole thing works. I don't know. Do you make ad revenue off of it?
I don't think so. Or I do, but I don't know how it works either. It's all confusing.
Do you have it set?
Yes, I make ad revenue off of Time Cats.
Yeah, then I think Nintendo would not let you do.
Yeah, I think we would have a separate show for Let's Plays. Like the podcast would be a separate thing, and the Let's Plays would be a thing, and yeah. It's not so much an issue with capture cards, as you also need to have a computer that can run them. And I think the Wii U has got some fiddly thing to do. Okay, you can capture the video from the console just fine, but the gamepad's confusing, so that's weird.
Well, this game it doesn't really matter. The only thing on the gamepad is the
okay,
map.
Cool.
Map.
Yeah. Are we done talking about Doctor Who already? Wow, it's only been half an hour. This episode... Let me tell you, this episode perfectly sums up the entire show. It's enjoyable, and when it's good, it's really, really good, but a lot of it's crap, and don't watch it unless you feel it's worth it for the good bits, which are really, really good.
Namely, episode 4.
Episode 4. I thought you were describing for a minute there, I thought you were describing Doctor Who, but then I realized that's the best episode of our podcast, so you might have been talking about the podcast. I was talking about Doctor Who. Like, this episode of Doctor Who, it perfectly sums up the entire show. It's...
Tell me, what color shirt is Freddy Krueger's
green?
Sweater? No, it's not. It's red and something striped.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm looking it up. Okay, red and black with stripes. Yes.
Oh,
red and black stripes. I may have been thinking the NES colors when I said it was green. Apparently, the miscoloration of Freddy Krueger from the NES game, based on his movies, is considered semi-canon.
What?
One of the action figures of Freddy Krueger is designed to intentionally invoke the NES game for nostalgia. There's also a Jason one.
Jason
yes.
Voorhees.
Okay, yeah. The NES Freddy is orange and a poopy green. I wasn't aware the NES had poopy green in its palette, but apparently it does. Okay, so
my character is
okay. So in a lot of pictures, this is actually looking more like a mustardy yellow color, but in a lot of these other ones, it's looking poopy green. So it's really a lighting thing.
Yeah, I bring it up because my character is wearing I have my character wearing a sweater that's red and blue.
The most unique thing about the NES Freddy was they apparently didn't know that his claw hand was a glove. So his glove is actually the same color as his skin. So that's pretty neat, I guess. But what?
They
thought it was like some sort of horror-themed Wolverine, yes. But the NES Jason is definitely much more of a thing. Personally, I would just want the toys in the proper colors, but those exist too, so everything's good. I am now remembering that Friday the 13th Kickstarter is happening. Oh, tons of shit is flowing into my brain now. So I actually when I remembered that the NES Jason colors are apparently significant, I decided purely for aesthetic purposes, because I don't really care that much, but I care for the fans of this franchise to be happy. I wanted to check if that was actually going to be in the game that they're kickstarting, and I checked that, and when I checked, the Kickstarter wasn't actually funded yet, so that was scary. So I'm checking now, and they have been funded. So that Friday the 13th game is actually happening. That is good.
Yep.
That is very good. I still have no idea if NES Jason's going to be like an ultimate pilot or something in this game, but if it's on PC, I'm going to mod it. So who cares? I've actually watched Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3. I didn't have time to watch all of them, so I just picked the two that are basically essential, I guess. 2 is the first one where Freddy is the primary. I mixed up the names. I keep doing that. 2 is the first one where Jason is the primary antagonist, and 3 is the one where he picks up his hockey mask for the first time.
So he doesn't wear the hockey mask in the first
one?
one?
Not in the first. In the first one, his mother is actually the villain. Then in the second movie, he's the main villain, but he wears a bag or something. And then in the second one of his victims is actually wearing a hockey mask, and when Jason kills him, he's all like, he puts on the mask and he just wears it for the rest of the franchise for some reason. I guess he really likes it.
So the signature mask didn't even start.
The signature mask did not come until the third movie. Yes.
I did not know that. Nor do I really care because I'm not a fan of. I like Friday the 13th the series, which, believe it or not, has no connection to Friday the 13th the movies.
I find Friday the 13th fascinating purely on an appreciation level of the horror genre. I do like the Friday the 13th movies that I've seen so far. I find it's compared to most slasher films, it's actually more engaging because you actually give a shit about half of the protagonists. But yeah, I mostly just appreciate it for its cultural significance. You got that thing. Like Star Wars. I don't even remember if I like Star Wars that much, but I'm going to make sure to watch the original trilogy before Force Awakens comes out to rewatch. I rewatch it. I haven't seen any of the Star Wars movies in over a decade.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Given how much they're on TV, that's surprising.
Yeah. I've gone and I've downloaded the theatrical cuts of the original trilogy, and I'm gonna watch those as soon as I'm able. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to see The Force Awakens, because I'm definitely seeing that in theaters if I see it at all. And that costs money, so I don't think I'm going to be doing that anytime soon. Which is a problem, because this is the internet, and it's a movie I want to see, and it's got Star Wars in the title. So, none of that's good.
I don't know how I'm going to be able to avoid spoilers until it comes out on DVD, Blu-ray.
Part of the reason I was so excited about starting this podcast was so that I would have a work excuse to. I would have a work-related reason to watching Walking Dead and Doctor Who the moment it becomes possible for me to do so. So that because I cannot use the internet until I've seen the most recent episode of Doctor Who and The Walking Dead. These are two shows that it's just not possible to use the internet until you've seen them. Yes, I mentioned that. I mentioned that the entire reason that I finally started watching Doctor Who was because I had the name of the Doctor was coming out, and that since no one had seen it yet, obviously. So we all actually thought that the Doctor's name was going to come out, and we all thought it was going to change the show forever, and it really didn't have that significant an impact on the franchise in retrospect. But we all thought it did, so I forced myself to watch through at least all the way up from Eccleston's period, which wasn't easy. Would have been significantly harder if I had started all the way with Hartnell, but yeah, I did try to watch the classic series, but it's very slow, and my hard drive crashed because of all of the crap I needed to download.
No deal.
Yeah, there's just a fuck ton of the classic series, and it's not all commercially available, so I had to pirate it, and there's just too much. At this time, the BBC has only recently released the audio for the last classic series episode. So they are all commercially available in some form now, but they weren't when I tried. So I was actually really disappointed I wasn't able to keep going, because I really wanted to get to the 10th planet at least. I really like the original design of the Cybermen. I feel that it doesn't work. It's not as intimidating, but it is more creepy. The more modern depictions of the Cybermen, the more robotic depictions of them are more intimidating, but the old humanoid ones with cloth skin and really goofy electronic bits sticking out, and just the whole thing, it actually looked much creepier, because you just can't help but look at this and think, wow, that's a person. That's what used to be a person. That's terrifying. There's actually some concept art that the updated Cybermen were supposed to actually just run with that more. Like instead of having opaque solid metal casings, they were gonna have like cages around them and just be basically mummies with like I'm describing this concept art really badly. I'll just link it in the description.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll get it and I'll show you. It should be easy to. I don't remember if it's official concept art or not. It probably might. It probably isn't. It looked way too badass to be official. I say that like Doctor Who can't be badass, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah. Doo-doo-doo. Oh wait, there is something about this episode that we haven't mentioned yet. So the weird bit in a movie where the Doctor says he's half human was brought up again in the show, unironically. So there's a possibility that might be canon. I don't think any of us saw that coming. The Doctor is all like, the Doctor meets up with Shielda and he's all like, you're the hybrid, and she's all like, why does the hybrid have to be me? Why can't the hybrid be you, a Time Lord who's half human? And the Doctor looks away like, let's not talk about that. That's not canon. And the Shielda's all like, oh please, you're a Time Lord from Gallifrey. Why are you always on Earth all the time? Like, she's got a point, I guess. The Doctor really seems to like Earth for some reason, but like at the same time, it's fairly obvious what the problems are with the Doctor being half human. So I don't know how I feel about this. And I forgot what I was googling. Okay, never mind. I just saw the search term, so I remember now. So Xenoblade Chronicles X is fun, huh?
Yes, it is. So we're finally going to talk about the blue mecha in the room, huh? You drive Max in this game.
Oh.
Mine's blue. I wanted to name it Formula Synchron after
the Eco card.
After Yusei's initial star monster, but
I really wish I was able to immerse myself in video game lore, so I could actually like learn stuff about Xenoblade Chronicles and talk to you about it and stuff. But I can't focus on anything that's not card game related for some reason. So and Doctor Who, I can apparently focus on Doctor Who stuff and Walking Dead stuff and card game stuff, and that's apparently where my ability to stuff falls apart. I am considering starting to rewatch the shows, starting to rewatch Duel Monsters, finish GX because I never finished it, and start 5Ds. I
recommend the subtitles.
I'm definitely doing the subtitles. If I want to watch the entire series, I have to do the subtitles because the last seasons of GX and 5Ds were not dubbed, or at least the dubs of them were not aired. 4Kids has a tendency to dub things without ever showing it, without ever.
4Kids had legal problems during the end of 5D's run. What happened was they were involved in trying to what company is it that makes Yu-Gi-Oh in Japan that does the anime?
Nihon Ad Service. Toei Animation animated the original anime. The rights went to Nihon Ad Service.
But during 5Ds, it was still
Toei. Toei was Season 0. Neon Hat Systems is the name. They produced Duel Monsters, GX, 5Ds, and Sexel or Zeal or whatever, and are currently in the other one, the new one.
Well, whoever owned the whoever owned the Japanese rights to the season, 4Kids was screwing them out of money.
Yep.
And so there was a huge legal argument about that and possible discussions about ending their contract with them. And so that wound up, and so that all happened during the end run of 5Ds, and so there's big portions of the show are cut out.
I was wondering why all this shit started to hit the fan with Yu-Gi-Oh suddenly.
4Kids wasn't giving them the money that they were supposed to be giving them for the episode. They were screwing them out of money, and so they got their asses sued.
I wish I could say it was for the best, but to the best of my understanding, the English localization rights are now with apparently 4Kids is still around.
Yeah, 4Kids is still doing it, aren't they?
Oh no, it is a subsidiary. Okay, this is confusing. So 4Kids is owned outright by Konami. I was aware that Konami had bought the English localization rights to Yu-Gi-Oh, but apparently they just bought out 4Kids in general, the whole thing.
When did that happen?
When 4Kids was going through their legal bullshit, Saban and Konami were fighting over it, and they organized a deal. Konami got the rights to half of 4Kids shit, and Saban got the rest.
Huh.
So Konami apparently owns okay, it's not.
It's amazing when Konami might not be the biggest assholes in this
Yeah,
equation.
everyone I know was really excited when Konami bought 4Kids. This was years ago, and now no one's happy about it because
Konami is Konami, and Konami.
I don't even know if Konami is any better than 4Kids. I haven't actually seen any of the dubbing work for the current Yu-Gi-Oh series RV, but I have at least heard the theme songs, and I don't know what the hell they did to the theme songs because it's like, okay, so like the Japanese theme song for Arc V has a very circus performer and also their clocks and shit vibe going on, and that's pretty good for this series. And then
Because the pen.
yeah,
Right?
and then the English, it's just a very fun-loving, exciting hype action sound, and also there are like some metronome sounding effects. I'm describing what something sounds like, and I'm not doing a good job. But the English theme is easier because the English theme sounds basically like the Yu-Gi-Oh version of 4Kids' idea of the One Piece theme.
Oh,
When
God,
4Kids got a hold of One Piece and they gave it that weird ass rap song, it's like, okay, so that was a okay rap song, but what was wrong with the original intro? And I think they made an English version of One Piece's original theme song, but they went with this anyway. A lot of 4Kids decisions were not made with the decision that Americans just can't handle Japanese stuff. When 4Kids was in charge of Pyramid of Light, that movie was entirely commissioned by 4Kids, and a lot of the things that people disliked about the Yu-Gi-Oh anime in relation to the dubbing was corrected in Pyramid of Light movie because apparently the regulations for anime on TV were really screwing with 4Kids the whole time they were on air. And that might be why Yu-Gi-Oh is still facing some problems with its dubbing, even though 4Kids is under new management. But it's hard to tell because Konami's still shit. So I don't even know. I just
So how did we get to? So how did we? Oh, that's right. I've tried talking about this game twice.
I'm
now.
sorry.
First, I mentioned my character's costume and it breaks, and we start talking about war. Then I talked about that I wanted to name my mecha Formula Synchron, and we got talking into Yu-Gi-Oh again.
Apparently, Arc V is actually pronounced Arc 5.
Okay.
So I was actually not mistaken all the times I've accidentally pronounced it that way. Anyway, so I'm not going to sidetrack anymore. Talk about the Blade Chronicles.
All right. So, despite my criticism of the battle systems on Twitter, I actually really am fond of this game. I've been looking forward to it for a long time, and I'm not. Well, I've been looking not for a long time, but I've been very excited for it in ways that I haven't been excited for anything in quite a while, and I'm not disappointed by it. But again, there are things that don't work in it. That really should.
We must always acknowledge the flaws with what we like, because the only way for things to improve is if we acknowledge what their mistakes are, and we criticize because we care.
First of all, how do you think how do you think targeting works in this game?
Well, let's see. I would assume badly because we're complaining about it. So,
Well, how would you imagine targeting should work in video games in general?
you push a button and wait a few seconds, and then you push a different button, and then that's done.
Well, obviously, with games like Legend of Zelda, targeting is instantaneous almost.
I feel that that's too easy. I feel that you shouldn't need to manually target, but you should have to like I said, push a button to target and then push a different button and the targeting is automatic. It knows what you want to target on when.
The problem with the idea of targeting not being smooth and functional is the fact that if there's disconnect between the targeting and the player, and the targeting doesn't work, and it does not work optimally, and it caused problems. And this is a game where the targeting has a problem. Actually, the one thing I was noticing is I was looking up a little bit earlier. I was looking up the various articles that have not weighed too kindly on this game, and quite honestly, my complaints of it don't seem to be there. So let's talk about my complaints about this game. The targeting in particular is borked, to put it lightly. First of all, trying to target anything is you might as well be rolling the dice if there's multiple targets, because trying to get the thing to target on what you want to target is not very efficient, and even using the game method of cycling through targets can be very hit and miss. Sometimes there's another target that you want to aim for right there, and the game just won't target it, and that can be annoying enough in general. But when you're in the middle of a battle and getting pounded by enemies, you kind of need to target what you want to target, and that's why and especially like normally in these kind of games where you have boss battles and stuff like that, where might have like smaller enemies and then one larger enemy, and normally you want to target the smaller enemies first because they're easier to take out, and then you'll be doing less damage while you fight the big guy, right? The big boss.
Yes.
But in this game, that actually becomes wrong because trying to cycle and switch what you're targeting is such a pain and so difficult. The time it takes to try to cycle things around can actually get you killed. And not only is the targeting borked, but targeting doesn't do what you expect it to do either. When you target something, you expect your attacks to hit what you're targeting, and you expect the camera to focus on them, right? Guess which one of those things targeting doesn't do?
The thing that you want it to do.
Well, obviously you want to do both of those things. When you target an enemy in this game, the camera does not follow them.
Okay.
You still have to manually follow them with your camera, which can be difficult when you've got things that are moving fast, but it can also it can also which can be problems. Which let me start over. Well, not only does it not automatically target the enemies, but the camera controls itself in battle are absolute shit. Trying to keep an eye on a fast-moving enemy can be a hassle. As a matter of fact, I recommend if you're watching this and you have Xenoblade Chronicles after playing getting it, I would recommend jacking the rotation speed up because you will need the higher rotation speed for your camera, because it's very difficult to follow the enemies that are moving around. Some of the faster ones that do these jumping moves that launch them a distance away. You'll need the camera to be going fast so you can at least attempt to keep up with them. And when there's multiple targets, not only is it just impossible to target them, but sometimes it can be impossible to find them in the sea of crowd. And so battling is not as fluid as it should be. It's certainly not as fluid as it was in Xenoblade Chronicles. The battling system, again, both the poor targeting system and the poor camera controls in battle kind of work together in this harmonious balance of shit. And it only gets worse when you factor in that losing a battle in your scale, that your mech means that you have to wait for to get enough money to salvage it, which factors into other bad design choices, which again with the way the missions work and the fact that you can't buy the research probes, which is your primary method of getting money, and the fact that you have no way to know what drops the research probes you need. You basically have to go through the game's rather boring side quests and stuff like that, looking for missions quests, looking for all this stuff, and basically all the unintuitive features, all the bad features of this game tie in together to create a perfect clusterfuck of things that really don't work by themselves, and all put together they form a chain link of bad choking the life out of this game. And on top of it, the whole exploring this world that you crash landed on, you're exploring this world, but it kind of feels less immense once you realize that even though your people have only been on it for 2 months, it's basically already been explored for you. As a matter of fact, one of the areas you'll find out later on is actually rather well developed, and so you're not really exploring an uninhabited, unexplored world, because you're 2 months late to the party and it's already all been explored for the most part. And the music, I've heard some people like it, some people don't like it. The music's all right, but it's not my style, and certainly not what I'm for. And the music also has some problems where they have scripted cutscenes in this game, and they have voiced cutscenes in this game, and sometimes the music plays over it, so it's hard to hear what they're saying. And even more annoying is when it's doing that with music that has lyrics, because a lot of the music in this game has lyrics, vocals in it, and trying to listen to what one character is saying over music that's blaring too loudly is bad enough. But what music that's blaring too loudly and has vocals in it, it become almost impossible to hear Mr. Mustache say some of the things he's saying when there's music with.
I'm sorry, there's a character named Mr. Mustache.
That's what they call them a lot. Yes.
I love this franchise.
This is kind of a standalone
I love
game,
this
but
game. I mean, then sorry.
well, yeah.
Sorry, I
If
called it a
you're
franchise just now because because while you were talking, I've just been looking into
it is part of the Xeno
the
franchise.
The Xeno franchise. The first game, Xeno Gears, on a
Yeah.
PlayStation, developed by Square in 1996. Monolith Soft, the current developers, have been working on this game on the Xeno Saga franchise since 2002, which means apparently, disappointingly, it takes about 13 years to really work out all the bugs in an RPG. So that's a bit disappointing, but um, all the problems that you've mentioned don't seem to have affected your appreciation for the game too much. So I'm happy that they're doing as well as they're doing, and hope
Yeah,
they do
I mean,
and hope they do better in the future.
but again, the problem is that this game has a very similar battle system to Xenoblade Chronicles. But again, like I said, the camera and the targeting don't work as well as they did in Xenoblade Chronicles, which is disappointing because everything was so fluid in Xenoblade Chronicles, and here it's not. And like I said, it punishes you for losing in this game rather harshly, which isn't helped by the fact that this game that the can I tell you? This is mild spoilers for last boss here, very minor. A little earlier, I was playing with the last boss, and I already told you how bad the camera and targeting is. It only gets worse once you be able to fly, and you also have to worry about and you also have to worry and directions become that much more. There's that much more area to focus on when you're flying, and and so I was facing the final boss, and I didn't realize he had a shield up that was preventing him from damage. That you had to destroy little enemies that had appeared because I could not see the little enemies because again, using targeting to cycle through and find targets is not a thing that's viable, and really camera control is not. So I lost the battle because I didn't realize these new enemies popped up because quite frankly I had no way to know that these new enemies popped up. I mean I basically had a hint that there was a shield around him, but I didn't see any obvious signs of any enemies appearing, so I just assumed I just had to beat the shield down. And it was only when I lost half of my team when I realized, oh, there are some little things down there that and one of those must control the thing. Good luck figuring out which one because again, cycling through things, there's several different orbs that appear down there, and there's one that controls the shield. And good luck again targeting the one that you want to target. I mean, again, the targeting is yeah, I basically lost my skill because the game is programmed poorly, and then basically I had to turn off my game restart, so I didn't have to wait 5 hours for the money to go back because my skill was broken. Just a lot of quite honestly, when I look at how badly the battle system is in this game, quite honestly, I asked myself how it got out of beta, and that's some again. I like this game, but that is I do intend for that to be damning because the game does not feel like they've polished the battle as much as it should have. The battle system feels
I'm going
unfinished. There's
I'm
potential.
going to be perfectly honest with you. A lot of my favorite games also are optimized to shit and seem like they couldn't possibly have gotten out of beta. That's just
Yeah.
the way the state of of modern no, the state of games in general is that um
Yeah, but that's I mean they had the formula down in Xenoblade Chronicles, but in Xenoblade Chronicles X, I mean they needed to make the especially if you're going to punish. If you're going to heavily punish characters for a player for losing, and it's going to be time consuming for the players if they lose, you need to make damn sure your game controls fluidly and so that if the player loses, it's their fault and not a shoddy, unpolished battling system. Because if you're going to have a battle where you if you're going to have battles that have a shoddy framework to them, and then if you lose, it's going to haha see you again in 5 hours when you can afford to buy your scale and challenge me again. That's just a huge slap in the face and a huge fuck you to the entire playing base.
it
And
was
yeah,
re- it,
I'm
it was
losing.
released in English speaking regions this month. So here's what happened. The game was rushed so that development would be done in April so that they would have enough time to dub it so that it could be released in English speaking territories before Christmas because that is the most profitable time to sell a game like Xenoblade Chronicles. So yeah, that's the way that the game industry has been since at least the 90s. the best,
So they did
yep,
rush the game.
best games, the most fun and enjoyable and interesting games, the games that everybody wants to play and everyone will enjoy playing are never finished because their publisher just wants to sell them as quickly as possible. So my favorite game, Rock Raiders, is actually an unfinished, buggy pile of crap that that can barely run on any computer other than what was considered to be moderate in the 90s. It doesn't work on a computer that's better or worse than what was considered average in the 90s, which means it can barely run on any computer ever, and even if it does run, it doesn't run very well. And even if it runs completely fine, it still doesn't work right because there are a bunch of missing components to it. It's impossible to get 100% in the game because they accidentally put in a requirement for a number of energy crystals in a level that doesn't have any. So, yeah, and let's see, some other games that I like that are broken, and I can't think of one right now, but I'm sure I don't need to... Mega Man X6? I don't even...
Mega Man X6 is a perfect example of a big company rushing a game without finishing it.
Oh, that one's Capcom, so... Enough said. That's Capcom.
But even for Capcom, don't mispronounce it as Capcom. Never mispronounce it as Capcom.
You might as well. It's not much better.
That's an insult to all felines.
You're right. Anything that comes out of Cat is better than Capcom these days. There is no part of this conversation that I enjoy.
Yeah. But yeah. But even by Capcom standards, Mega Man X6 was a particularly shameful entry. The game was about as unfinished as it could be. I mean, there are a lot of games. I mean, again, that feel like there are elements of it that make it beta. But this game was entirely unfinished. This is one of the only Mega Man games in that series where you actually, because normally in most the levels in a non-linear fashion, although it might be more challenging to do certain levels. To some might be borderline impossible unless you're really good. Like take for example, in Mega Man 2, any of Heatman stages with those lasers without having the thing that freezes them. Those can be borderline impossible unless you're well, I suppose they're not impossible, but you have to put a lot of time, effort, and memorization into it, and getting every movement perfect in a way that I'm not really into. So it's easier just to beat that one after you've beaten the one that after you've gotten the weapon that freezes everything. But Mega Man X6 has levels that just can't be completed until you've completed other levels. As a matter of fact, I think there are really like two levels in particular two or three levels in particular that you can actually beat from the start, and they're just all kinds of buggy features, level design that clearly was the ability to reach the final bosses. The final area at the after two bosses, but not really being able to do much there until you've beaten more. And even the method to getting Zero's black armor being undoable because there's a requirement that you have to get I think you have to beat Nightmare Zero as Zero, but you can't beat Nightmare Zero as Zero because beating Nightmare Zero is a requirement for getting Zero. Or I'm not sure if that was, but there's some requirement that's basically impossible to do without a game hack because the game is programmed to, because you have to do something because you have to beat this character before you get Zero, but the requirement to getting Zero. So you can't beat this character as Zero because you won't have Zero until after you beat this character.
Basically what I was trying to say is video games are like if you went to any art museum and just erased a bunch of pieces, a bunch of fractions of the art. Just take a Mona Lisa, tear a bit of it off. It's incomplete. It's broken. It's the parts of it that are there are still nice. There's still a lovely piece of art, but it's kind of broken and can't be enjoyed as much as a finished project.
It's like the Mona Susan.
Yeah.
The Mona Lisa's younger sister, but it was never completed, and she has no face.
Yep, it's not even a clean cut, like you cropped out a bit that you didn't need. No, the face was erased, or part of it was ripped off unevenly, so you could tell what's missing, and it's very noticeable. And So you can still enjoy the parts of it that are still there, but like it's like why didn't they just fix it? Why isn't it just why they should have taken more time to make it? Just delay it for a year and then we'll buy it for Christmas next year. Shut up! And it's happened to Sonic the Hedgehog several times. That's the thing.
Yeah, Sonic
06 and Sonic Boom are basically exactly the same thing. They're basically almost.
They learned nothing from Sonic 6 and did it again.
They're almost exactly the same thing. They're a major reboot of the franchise that was overhyped, and that was pushed out early for no reason. Despite it's like Sonic Boom and Sonic 06 had been in development for a very long time.
Yeah, I think Andrea did a bit where she explained the similarities between Sonic 6 and Sonic Boom, and how Sega seemed to learn nothing from the.
Yeah, they learned nothing. They Sonic Boom and Sonic 06 are literally exactly the same thing. They're not the same game, obviously. Sonic Boom is arguably worse, but yeah, these are both games that were they were very far in development, but games take time, and they weren't given enough time, so they still felt rushed when they came out. They needed a couple more years, but they had to come out now. Sonic 06, Sonic Boom.
I don't think
Sonic Boom wasn't meant to be a Wii U exclusive, actually, and I don't even think it was supposed to come out for the Wii U at all. So
just like with Sonic 06 was initially not going to be the system that it came out for wasn't initially going to be coming out for, but
yeah, so they're actually the opposites. Sonic Boom.
They changed it late in development, and the managers don't seem to understand that.
Sonic 06 was going.
That when you have to retool a game for a new system, you pretty much have to toss out most of the stuff you already done.
Yeah, Sonic 06 was going to be a Nintendo exclusive, and Sonic Boom was going to be an everything other than Nintendo exclusive, and they both got switched to the opposite thing. And that's why Sonic and the Sonic storybook games happened, because Sega still owed Nintendo an exclusive Sonic game, and those didn't work out. So that's why Sonic Colors happened, because they still felt obligated to make a good Sonic game for Nintendo console. I think they were legally obligated to do that, but that worked out for them. And then they made Sonic Boom because they learned nothing, and here we are.
Sonic Colors?
Sonic Colors was both good and bad. It was
I seem to recall Jim Sterling and Sega had a bit of a feud with it, where Jim Sterling mocked heavily criticized the game, and they retaliated by sending him a giant poster of it.
Oh yes, I really like Sega. They seem to be more upfront about how horrible they are than other companies. Like,
yeah, and especially that Sonic the Hedgehog account on Twitter. One time, Jim was talking about and it countered with showing him the Sonic. It retaliated with mentioning how they sent him the Sonic Colors picture again. And Jim Sterling was like, "Well played, sir. Well played."
My favorite thing, and I think Jim has mentioned this several times, is that when it was brought to Sega's attention that they could just ban Jim Sterling from reviewing their things, their response was, "Why would we bother? You'll just buy our games yourself and shit on them that way." So.
Yeah, you mean they could stop sending reviews?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, I think it was specifically in reference. Somebody brought up the fact that Konami has apparently they blacklisted Jim, and when it was brought to Sega's attention that they could do the same thing, they were like, "Why bother? He could just buy our games himself and shit on them that way." It's like, at this point, Sega isn't even pretending that they're a good company, and I really respect that. Because it honestly seems like Sega is more in it for the art than the other companies, because honestly, at this point, they don't even seem to be that interested in making money. I think at this point, it's all like, yeah, we're bored letting Sonic Boom have development. We want to make something else. Just release what you got. We'll make something else. Because, like, nothing...
I hear the cartoon is...
Oh, yeah, the Sonic Boom cartoon is amazing. Just... I have no idea. I have no words.
There are no words to describe it. It's brilliant, magnificent.
There's an episode called "Just a Guy," and there's a scene where Sonic's voice actor dressed as Sonic is taking out the trash in real live action, and he's all like, "Oops, went too meta." And there's a scene where they're playing a video game, and Tails is all like, "So it's a game where you run really fast and you spin into a ball and hit things," and one of Eggman's robots is all like, "That sounds horrible." It's like, Yeah, that's
There's an episode that's entirely dedicated to making fun of how edgy Shadow is.
yeah. I haven't actually seen the episode that has Shadow in it yet, but I've
I hear Eggman the whole just spend the whole time making fun of him for being so
I,
edgy. It's like why?
I would assume, and I hope too, and I hope so much that they do go full edgy on it because, yeah, Shadow.
Well, it's kind of hard to be edgy when people are taking the piss out of you for being so edgy. Then you stop being so edgy, and then you seem kind of
But yeah,
sad. Oh,
like you know, the state of the game industry is in a pitiful condition when modern day Sega can be heralded as the good guys. They're the company that sucks the least of the companies who suck. That's just confusing enough to work. To put it into another perspective, the console manufacturers, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, are in good relations with each other. What has happened to the video game industry? That there can possibly be problems with game companies when that can happen.
Well, they might be have good relations, but they're still directly competing with one
They're still
another.
directly. It's gone from actual malicious, hate-filled bullshit like was happening in the 2000s, and they
or in the 90s where
well the 90s
Sega does what Nintendo
the 90s was mostly like a weird, playful kind of weird shit.
No, it was not. The 90s was when it was when the console wars was at its
The
worst.
90s sucked. I would say
The 90s people shed blood fighting in the console wars. Kids fought each other in the school.
okay then.
Over that, to which Nintendo and Sega helped furnish by having commercials that were extremely competitive. Again,
All right.
Sega had the Sega does.
I was gonna
I think a movie.
I was gonna say that the console wars were worse in the 2000s, but honestly, they were just worse on the corporate level. That definitely sounds a lot worse.
Until you've been beaten up for talking smack about Sonic the Hedgehog, you don't know what console.
Okay, yeah. So on a consumer level, the console wars were definitely worse in the 90s. On a corporate level, they were worse in the 2000s. But who cares about corporates?
No. On a corporate level, they were still worse in the 90s.
I don't recall it ever being clear whether.
The 90s heralded in.
So okay, to put it this way, I don't recall there being any actual confirmation that Sega and Nintendo actually hated each other back then.
Oh, they hated.
Okay then. Well, the point.
They were attacking. They were running. Their commercials were running against each other like political attacks.
So basically, the current state of the video game industry, where all three primary competing first party developers are in good relations with each other. This is actually the first time this has happened in decades.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how we got to this point. The video game industry is in shambles, but for the first time,
the reason probably why they get along so well is I think they kind of have to. I mean, they kind of their console wars kind of created a monster they never intended to create,
and plus their IPs are like tied together now, so it's like all of them own each other's shit, and it's all in a tangled web of. It's like I think if Disney kept buying stuff that Fox partially owned, eventually the two of them would just start to get along and learn to share. But at this point, they only own a couple of shit. But like here, Microsoft wanted to own Minecraft, and Minecraft was already on the PlayStation, so they just kind of had to learn to deal with that. And Sony the PlayStation. Literally, the PlayStation was born as a Nintendo add-on, so Nintendo is permanently part of PlayStation's legacy, and eventually they just had to acknowledge that, so they're learning to get along with each other. And Nintendo, Cloud is in Smash Brothers, despite Final Fantasy VII not being a Nintendo game.
Mm-hmm.
And they are considering putting Banjo-Kazooie in Smash Brothers. That is the most likely thing they are going to be announcing at the upcoming Smash Brothers Nintendo Direct.
Yeah, I've heard that was
Nintendo has stated that if Microsoft will let them, they will put Banjo-Kazooie in Smash Brothers. Microsoft has stated that they are all the way for that, and
I heard it a little differently. I heard if Rare will program it, they will put in that they're not going to make it themselves. They'll have to.
Well, that's okay. So the point is, I'm hearing a lot of yeses and only a couple no's. So.
Yeah, I've been hearing yeses.
It definitely seems like it's more likely to happen than not. And Cloud is in Smash Brothers. Literally anything can happen now.
And
it's like at least Banjo-Kazooie are from a game that was on a Nintendo system. Cloud was only in a game that a sequel to a game that was on a Nintendo system. So like, Cloud is only Nintendo character by legacy, which is definitely very fitting. And like, it's like, I mean, I love video games. And I hope they get better. But yeah. So all three of the primary competing console manufacturers are in good relations with each other, and apparently this has never happened before. And I guess the industry is actually doing better than it ever has, which is very, very, very upsetting. But
I don't know exactly. I don't know. The industry has a lot of problems right now.
Yes, but everyone's getting along, at least on the corporate level. Gamergate is happening, but that isn't video games' fault. That's humans' fault.
Actually, someone argued that again, Movie Bob has argued that Gamergate is a direct result of Sega and Nintendo's fighting in the '90s. He's gone on record with full details about how the fighting between those two in the '90s and the consoles and all that stuff led to this generation of.
History is going to remember that some of the most awkward and annoying shit in the 2000s were caused by an advertising slogan from the '90s. History is going to remember that some of the most violent harassment cases of the 2000s and 2010s was caused by the phrase "Sega does what Nintendo don't." History is going to remember this.
All of it will become irrelevant as video games are hardly as video game playing as Western video game playing as habits in the 2000s, in the early 2000s, become a mute point in history after the Third World War, ushered in by the Fourth Reich, Donald Trump.
I really do hope none of this matters in the long run, and I'm also very, 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 very much hoping Donald Trump doesn't win. He's becoming even more. I don't remember if I was talking with you or with my boyfriend about it, but Donald Trump is basically literally Hitler.
Yeah, and he's proving more so every day now. Now he just says he doesn't want Muslims coming into the country at all. Now it's
Godwin's law was a valid defense at one point, but now it's not. This guy is literally Hitler. Everything he becomes more like Hitler every day. It's like there's just.
Yeah, someone posted. Yeah, it's so bad. Someone posted in Florida posted a picture of him with a swastika in the background and the Hitler mustache on his face, and people literally don't know if that was done to praise him or to criticize him.
I remember when the worst thing Trump was associated with was that time when he tried to trademark the phrase "you're fired." I want to go back to those days, but we can't now. He's somehow gone from being a. He's somehow gone.
Even in those days, he was still racist.
He's somehow. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. He's gone from patent troll to rapist and Hitler Nazi.
He's been a rapist since the
yes,
late
but
80s.
I didn't know that. So to me, he's gone from patent troll to Hitler rapist.
And how bad is that, by the way, that public figures like that can do something like rape their wife? And I should have trigger warning, by the way. It's a little late for it, but trigger warning for viewers. I guess we'll have to put a trigger warning in the comment section.
I keep meaning to, but every time I put a trigger warning on stuff, people yell at me, and people yell at me if I don't, and the people who yell at me when I do stuff right are louder. So, fuck it. I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna put a trigger warning on my stuff because I want to. Because we talk about rape a lot, and
but basically in the late '80s, early '90s, that Donald Trump had raped his wife, and she doesn't know about because she kind of covered for it after that. But
so
there were charges, that there were allegations that she later dropped.
So it's been all the ridiculous shit that he's done in his life just been to cover that up?
No.
Oh.
I mean,
because I will be honest. Credit where credit is due. If he's done a good job doing enough ridiculous shit to cover that up.
It's not a matter of any active cover up on his part. It's more the fact that the media doesn't give a shit.
Oh yeah.
The media's never given a shit about.
The media doesn't give a shit about anything unless I don't know what they give a shit about. It's
not the important things.
Not the important things. Just. I will admit that the trademarking thingy was interesting to me, but I would honestly have preferred knowing that he was a sex offender, that he was a rapist, because I, this is a person that should not be allowed to run for president now, and he is.
It also gets creepier because a year or so ago he made a comment on his on his Twitter that suggests that he wants to fuck his daughter.
I thought he outright said that once.
Yeah, he not outright. He mentions that his I don't remember the exact word, but he suggests I think that if they weren't related that his daughter basically he said that it's on his mind, but that it's so creepy. I feel like I have to take a shower now after talking about. He's just I shouldn't be laughing. His entire campaign's dangerous. He's the fact that he's even running, even got this clown on the ticket is a disgrace, and it just shows how dangerous and myopic the politics have become. Where I mean, again,
Kanye West probably meant his candidacy for 2020 to be a joke, but honestly, I would rather have Kanye West.
Kanye West to date for all the stuff that he's done, I will give him credit because Kanye West is probably the only politician who's ever actually put their money where their mouth is in terms on trans issues.
Oh yeah,
yeah, the whole thing with Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah.
Even is he still making that diss track at Snoop for making fun of Caitlyn?
I didn't know that was happening at all.
Yeah, he was planning on doing a diss track to diss on all the rappers who made fun of his sister-in-law.
Let's see, Caitlyn
for being trans.
It says he's planning it, but I guess music takes time, so we're not gonna hear it for a while.
Yeah, but that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome, I think.
Yeah, I
have much respect for him for that.
Kanye West isn't perfect. He's done some pretty awkward shit, but that's the thing. He's only done awkward shit. He hasn't done anything horrible like rape and beating people, or he might have, but we don't know about that yet.
There is a certain level of bravery. I don't want to be all gushing over how brave it is for cis people to put themselves out there for trans people because what's brave is being trans and being open and honest with who you are. But I will give him credit for that because that is. It's something that shouldn't be as amazing coming out and stepping forward for trans people like that, especially when you're in a position like that. But nevertheless, it is brave and noteworthy, and it shouldn't be. It should be the way things are. It should be the status quo, but it's not. And so I will give Kanye prop for that.
Yeah, just the fact that we're talking about it at all means that it is something to praise. Once it gets to the point where we don't need to specifically acknowledge individuals who support trans rights, once it gets to the point that no one needs to care anymore, that is when we don't need to care anymore. That was
actually I said we'll know when. Right now, I mean, people keep talking about like, do we need like there was an article that was meant to be an ally to sort of be an ally written article by that was in I think the Daily Beast. Where it posed an answer to a question literally no one was asking, and basically it was saying yes, the trans day of remembrance is still needed, which answered the question that literally no one serious actually been asking, because the fact of the matter is that trans people are now for have been being talked about for about all of a year, maybe two, and for a couple of years, and really that's it. I mean, there has been some legislation in California, but outside of that, there really hasn't been much in terms of trans rights, and people are and even to the suggestion that how far I mean. Trans rights, in terms of actually being an issue that's actually being fought for, we haven't even reached that level yet. We haven't even reached the level of having the of being treated as a serious issue yet. And I'll tell you when we're being taken seriously. We're being taken seriously when you know this whole war on Christmas thing, and Fox News complains about Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas. When Fox News is doing that, but complaining about the barista at Starbucks, for example, calling them they instead of saying he or she because one gender binary isn't real, and and it's impossible to know someone's gender just by looking at them. You shouldn't assume people's gender. So using gender neutral pronouns like they to greet people is the proper thing. And so once we have Fox News complaining about how when they go out in public now, people call them they because they don't want to assume. That will be when you know that trans rights not that has succeeded, but is actually being taken seriously. Not actually being taken seriously. Not even to the point where we've actually have trans rights, but just that people take it as something serious, not as a novelty.
I'm
It's not as something that just say.
I've always been confused how upset people get about they pronouns because everybody benefits from they being standard pronouns because saying he or she, it's exclusionary to non-binary people. It's kind of clunky and awkward to say, much more clunky and awkward than saying they, and it's two extra syllables. Where if you just refer to people as they instead of he or she, then it's more inclusive, and it's easier to say. Why would you fight so hard for your right to strain yourself?
Well. Again, I go back to that time, what's his name? Chris Hayes from MSNBC had on a panel to talk about trans rights and Caitlyn Jenner, and they had three cis people on, but one of them was a gay man, so I guess they figured that was close enough. And let's be honest here. Basically what they did was they had a black man, they had a white woman, and they had a gay man on to talk about trans. As this having a diverse panel of people who aren't trans makes up for not having any trans people on the panel to talk about trans issues. But they had this diverse panel of cis folk to talk about trans issues. And to be fair, the one I think was best. Best I think was the cis woman and not the gay man, because that's so commonplace that they think that anyone in the LGBT community can speak for whatever letter that they aren't a part of. And it's usually gay men. They usually have gay men speaking for the rest of the LGBT community as if they're the definitive experience.
Hi, Jess.
You don't agree with that?
Oh no, I agree with you.
I don't mean to take the crap out of gay men. I mean, gay men get a lot of shit as well.
I just don't like the world we live in, and I like card games.
Yeah, let's go back to talking about card games.
I like card games.
On motorcycles.
So there's a new Yu-Gi-Oh movie coming out, and it's Kazuki Takahashi is developing the story himself, so it's probably going to be a really good one. Like he's putting in so much attention to it that we're actually getting a redesign of the characters from Kazuki Takahashi himself. Dark Magician is having a recolor. So apparently, Dark Magician was originally purple because the manga page would have been weighted down by a character in solid black cloak. So the decision was made for his clothes not to be solid black, and they just used purple as a filler color. And let's see, the Blue Eyes White Dragon, it's got a redesign that I don't know anything about. I've just seen what it looks like, and I approve. And other than
this will be the first Yu-Gi-Oh movie since the 15th anniversary of 5D's movie, right?
Yeah, which I am amazed that it was 5 years ago. Wow,
yeah,
wow, this time flies when you're.
I like how time flies since the 15th anniversary Mega Man collection in it was 15th what 2004 was it 1989 94 99. Yeah, the 15th anniversary collection had the anniversary collection of Mega Man, and how the 15th anniversary collection of Mega Man was a better deal than the Capcom did better anniversary collection for the 15th than they did for the 25th that they released this year.
Yes. So back to Yu-Gi-Oh! So this new movie, it will apparently be the first Yu-Gi-centric story produced in the anime continuity that takes place after the Duel Monster series. Yugi appeared in Shadow in a couple of segments of GX, but the only time when he's really been given focus in later series was when time travel's involved. So.
And I think that, and I'm not sure when in Yugi's timeline that happened. I think that
was the Jaden's duel with Yugi in the finale of GX occurred somewhere before Dawn of the Duel, and most of the things not explicitly about the ceremony about season 5 took place between seasons 4 and 5. So the Pyramid of Light movie, Capsule Monsters, Bonds Beyond Time, and the finale of GX, those apparently all took place before season 5. Apparently.
Mm-hmm.
So this movie will be the first time Yugi is actually seen for more than a few minutes at a time. So I'm interested in seeing this because
Will Akan be back?
no, the I feel awkward referring. I real refer, yeah, know him. I feel awkward calling him a Tim because that's a spoiler for anyone who doesn't know that, and I feel awkward calling him the Pharaoh because I feel okay. So like Kazuki Takahashi apparently researched Egypt a lot for the manga, and Yami's true self is actually depicted as as respectfully and close to an actual Egyptian pharaoh as possible. But the anime really just, I don't know what the hell was up with that, so I feel really awkward talking about Yu-Gi-Oh's Egyptian ethos. But yeah, according to DX, Yugi ages up, and as a teenage and as an older adult, Yugi adopts a lot of Yami's mannerisms and his physique. Also, he's like totally ripped. I don't know how having muscular arms benefits the playing of card games, but yeah.
It helps you protect yourself from getting beat up by all the people who want to beat up nerds who play card games.
That would work out, except that
I'm sorry, I didn't slap that one.
that would work out, except like in the Yu-Gi-Oh universe, like card games are like everything.
What if they're not? What if they're not though? What if all the characters that we meet are just the uber nerds, and the rest of the world is like, what are with these nerds?
It's fun to think that, but Kaiba Corp was the military according to the virtual world arc, at least in the anime continuity, because that was a filler arc that only existed in the anime. According to the anime continuity, Kaiba Corp was in charge of distributing all military hardware somehow. I don't know if that was just
they were the big ones. They were the big ones in charge.
They were
the military industrial complex.
Kaiba Corp was basically the equivalent of Stark Industries.
Yeah.
And it's been run by a child for a good couple of decades now. Seto Kaiba was like, what was he, about like 10, 12 when he took over the company?
Something like that, yeah.
And his decision to spontaneously shift development from military hardware to holographic simulations to enrich the experience of playing children's card games pretty much shifted the entire dynamic of the entire world. So these card games, they are taken as seriously as they are by the main characters, by literally everybody. This card game is still acknowledged as being a toy meant for children, but it is a toy meant for children that is used in place of military weaponry. So.
And we know how that ultimately and we know how that ultimately progresses because 5Ds takes place in the same universe, only
so
how long after.
While guns do exist and were only edited out by 4Kids, it was adopted by the anime continuity that yes, card games are this universe's equivalent to swords and guns. All debates, all discussion, everything is card games. Those kids in GX who go to college to learn how to play card games, they're going to military school. Duel Academy was a military school.
Well, and by the time of Yu-Gi-Oh 5Ds, it also encompasses the sciences as card games literally become the power that fuels the world.
Yeah, and like I think that's why people who are fans of Yu-Gi-Oh get so immersed in this franchise, because I want to live in this world. I would love so much if instead of killing each other, instead of murdering people, instead of raping people, instead of blowing up entire regions of the world, dooming society, we just play card games. Like, there's still people dooming society, but if you beat them in a card game, they'll stop. I want that.
Or they'll play dangerous card and wipe out an entire city with a single move.
Well, there's a chance that can happen, but it's still better than nukes.
Pokemon is also similar in that regard. So I don't know if Pokemon can't canonically in the game world if they have guns. They fight wars with Pokemon though.
Yeah, wars have been fought with Pokemon.
Lieutenant Surge.
Well, look,
Lieutenant Surge was the former U.S.
Yep.
military officer who used his Raichu in
There
combat.
was a Nobunaga's Ambition Pokemon game, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, Pokemon Conquest, I believe. Is that canon? If that's not canon, if that's not canon, then you might.
It's not. Depends on what canon you're talking about. Pokemon has so many canons.
It's really nebulous. I don't know what it is about franchises like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh that they can't just have a set canon.
Well, Pokemon has an anime canon,
Poke-
which is completely separate from
Pokemon actually has several anime canons now.
Manga canons, huh?
Pokemon actually has several anime canons now that Pokemon Origins happened. And
Pokemon what?
Pokemon Origins.
Oh, that's right. But Pokemon Origins is
It's a straight adaptation of Pokemon Red and Green.
Red, Blue. Yeah, Red, Green, mostly.
Mostly. It's closer than the anime we got. Not better or worse, just closer.
I quite like the Pokemon Origins animation.
Oh yes, my phone is ringing. It's just an alarm. Gotta take my medicine. Yes, I like Pokemon Origins also. We've been going on for a long time.
I've been grinding on Xenoblade Chronicles X the entire time,
and
I'm almost at level cap. I'm level 59.
Yes, and I do apologize, and especially that once again I spent most of the time talking about card games, but I think we did a good job here. Doctor Who.
Well, if you didn't spend most of the time talking about card games, I would have spent most of the time talking about video games. So.
Yeah, it's not like there's a lot good to say about this week's Doctor Who. This is we were all excited when.
It wasn't that they were going to make a spin-off of it.
Everyone was excited. Everyone was excited when Stephen Moffat took over for Doctor Who because he wrote the best episodes of the Russell T Davies era.
Well,
but
that's debatable.
He introduced Jack Harkness and the Weeping Angels, so everyone was excited. And then he actually took over, and no one's happy with it. I can say that his legacy, the Doctors that he spawned, and some bits of the canon he created, work. But overall, I think it would just be best for everybody involved if the rumors are true, and Moffat did step down after this Christmas special.
I hear he's got one more season after this, and then he's stepping down.
Okay, so we got one more season to put up with this.
Although I'm hoping that's not true because he's not going to have because if that's true, then there's not going to be a Doctor Who season next year because he's going to be busy with another show. And now would be a good time to. I would
really just appreciate it if they take their time, get things together, and because
and spend this year spend this year getting prepared for a new showcaster. Since the show seems like it's pretty much not going to be there's not going to be a 2016 Doctor Who season. Spend that time getting acquainted with a new head writer rather than having 2016 not have Doctor Who, then having 2017 have a Doctor Who, and then 2018 not having Doctor Who again because of
what Adult Swim seems to be doing with their best shows, Venture Brothers and Rick and Morty, the best shows that they have. They take a long time to make, and I don't know if they've done it on purpose or not, but Adult Swim has coordinated them so that they are actually developing alternatively. So next year, the Venture Brothers will be airing their first season for 2 years. And then they'll be airing it next year, and they'll go on another hiatus. That'll probably last for 2 years. Then Rick and Morty will air, and then the next year Venture Brothers, and then the next year Rick and Morty, and the next year Venture Brothers. I think that if the BBC had another show that was as good as Doctor Who, they could have that show air on an alternate schedule to Doctor Who. But see, that's the thing though. The spin-off they're going with does not sound as interesting. So.
I'm gonna say something controversial now. That's probably the most controversial thing that we've said on the show. That will probably get us the most hate that we've ever had on this. If you hear, but here we go. I'm gonna say it now.
Before
Adult Swim, huh?
Before you say anything, I should point out I've already had 2 energy drinks today. So if what you're about to say is going to be particularly controversial, I'm going to need to drink a 3rd energy drink just to maintain composure.
Adult Swim has never produced any show worth watching. I said it. Well, I said it. People get pissed about that. Watch the comment section. Obviously, that's an opinion. Obviously, it's an opinion not shared by the rest of the entirety of the human race.
I have
much like my opinion that Nintendo is the only console worth giving a damn about. Again, another opinion right there. Comment section just blew up.
At this time in history, Nintendo is the only console worth giving a damn about. There was a period where Sony and Xbox knew what they were doing, but now they don't. So
They were never worth caring about.
okay. Have you seen an episode of Rick and Morty or Venture Brothers?
No, I try, and that's intentional.
All right.
I have no desire to watch any of those shows.
All right. If you're willing to give them a chance, I would recommend them. But you're free to your opinions. Look. Those are the only two shows I can name on this network that are of quality, and this network has been on for 10 years. Cartoon Network itself, I can name dozens of shows that they've made in their history.
Oh, I can name I can name shows, but Cartoon Network hasn't put a show on the air worth watching since they canceled Teen Titans.
Well, Steven Universe.
Oh, I saw another there goes their comment section blowing up again.
Well, Steven.
Steve,
it's the same deal. Steven Universe is the only current example I can point to and say Cartoon Network knows what they're doing, because see, when you have an entire network that's only when you have an entire network, an entire thing, an entire huge system, and only one of their products works, you're doing something wrong. Konami, this huge company that has all of these properties, they're only doing Yu-Gi-Oh right, and not even that well. Like Yu-Gi-Oh is.
I mean, they did Metal Gear sort of well. They're trying. They have things that are doing right, and they're purposely trying to scuttle them because they don't want to do it right.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh seems to be the only thing Konami is trying to do right, and that they're failing at. Like,
particular machines, right too.
Well, there is no right way to do pachinko machines.
Well, let's be honest. They're sexy Castlevania pachinko machines. Well, let's be honest. I've never been more interested in pachinko in my life. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing it right.
No, that's how you pronounce it, pachinko.
I'm not even sure if that's racially insensitive to say that.
I actually hadn't thought of that. I'm going to look up whether pachinko. I'm going to stop saying it now.
Yeah, because I know there's part of that name has a slur in there.
Oh crap! You're right. I hadn't noticed that.
So I have no idea if that's just so.
Okay, moving on. So the reason I can say that the reason I can say that Konami sucks, even though they make one product that I like, is because they are an entire corporation. They're an entire big company that makes one good product. That is a sign that they're doing something wrong. Sega is only known for one product out of the many dozens, possibly more than that they have. That they make, they are only known for one product that isn't consistently good. They are doing something wrong. Adult Swim has made two shows that are good and not worth watching unless you are already watching them. They're not, like, no, none of this works. None of this is a sign that a company is doing shit right. Cartoon Network, you need to have more shows worth watching than Steven Universe, because if that's the only show that you have and people don't want to see it, then you have nothing to offer people that aren't watching that show. You need.
Meanwhile, Nintendo cares very deeply about its franchises.
Nintendo cares so much about the industry.
It won't let other people touch them. It has specific rules on it, who and where its franchises may be handled and how they may be handled by outside companies.
Yes,
and especially outside of Japan companies.
A lot of people have been upset how stingy Nintendo can be about their products, and how apparently Disney had trouble with Wreck-It Ralph because Nintendo had regulations on how large Bowser is allowed to be in relation to Eggman. Because of the Sega crossover, Bowser has fluctuating size across continuity, but apparently his size always needs to be a specific size in relation to Eggman when on screen. So a lot of people were confused and upset about how ridiculous that sounds, but it just means that Nintendo actually gives a shit, because anyone else would have been all like, yeah, just do whatever you want.
Nintendo gives too much of a shit.
Yeah, Nintendo gives a little bit too much of a shit. And the only reason that seems like a bad thing is because no one else gives any shit. Because I don't even understand. Is Nintendo siphoning off other people's ability to give a shit? Because that's a really weird superpower. Like, oh, I am a giving a shit to vampire. Is that a real?
It has more to do with the young generation versus old generation.
Yeah, Nintendo.
There are a lot of
Nintendo's
generation is very bad at.
Nintendo is one of the oldest companies that I regularly talk about. They're like 200 years old. So the way that this company
and they're only entering this is now only their second president who's not part of the dynasty.
Yeah. So Nintendo's way of business, the way that companies operated, is rooted in like, what is it, 1800s?
1850, I think.
Yeah, 1850. So like
that's easy for me to remember because it's the same year that California was founded as a state.
Yeah, so this is a very old school company. So like, just the way that they run, like older does not always mean better, but modern companies don't do shit right. So
Well, there's a mindset to modern to modern. There's very much shall we say frivolous. The younger generation is very frivolous with how it sees things, and that includes its employees.
it's basically it's not as simple as this is an old company. This is an old company from Japan that specialized in trading cards, and now they do video games, and all of those factors coalesce to combine into a company that actually works in an industry full of companies that are basically just ruling babies wandering around.
Well, yeah. One thing I like about Nintendo is it actually seems to give a damn about its employees, and that's not something we see too often in today's world,
We haven't even seen that with Nintendo.
Job's expendable. They can just buy someone else. They can just pay someone else to do your job. Probably pay less to do your job.
Nintendo actually learns lessons. They didn't used to respect their companies even a couple of decades ago. Like they forced Gunpei Yokoi to release the prototype to the Virtual Boy. What was released as the Virtual Boy was just his prototype. They released it as a finished product because they just wanted it on shelves as quickly as possible. Then they fired him.
That's not what I meant though when I said no training.
But they're better.
Treating them with decent pay and work hours. I understand. If I'm wrong.
Yeah, they're doing that now. But what I'm saying is they didn't always respect their employees. But they learn their lessons. They learn their lessons, and that's the biggest.
I'm not sure if even back then they were. I mean, remember Miyamoto was the custodian.
Oh yeah, he was. I forgot that. Yeah, he was.
Was Miyamoto was the custodian, or was it the guy who developed the Game Boy?
Gunpei Yokoi.
A lot of people who came up in the company from very awkward places.
Gunpei Yokoi was the Game Boy guy. He did Game Boy, Metroid, Kid Icarus, the Virtual Boy, the Game & Watch, pretty much everything. Like everything that's in the company was either Miyamoto, Gunpei Yokoi, or Satoru Iwata.
And now only Miyamoto's left.
Yeah, he was in the running to be in charge of the company, to be the new president.
Yeah, I'm sad he wasn't. Instead, they got this banker.
Yes. Well, he's a good guy. He is the creator of Punch-Out and Star Tropics. So.
Really, I had not heard about that. I didn't even know he got into video games until 2000.
Apparently, it was only added to his Wikipedia article recently. I knew about Punch-Out, but I did not know about Star Tropics. Let's see.
But he didn't even work at Nintendo until 2000.
Let's see. Genyo Takeda. Let's see. He was mostly worked on improving hardware for consoles and handhelds. Sometimes developed. Okay, this article is really written badly. Let's see.
I'm not sure. Because previously I heard that he was just that he was a money guy and he's barely done anything in terms of. So I don't know. Maybe that's wrong. I don't know. But everything I heard suggests that he was a banking guy.
Since even the president of the company has been since Satoru Iwata was the president of the company and occasionally a software consultant, it's reasonable to say that every employee of Nintendo has some programming proficiency.
Yeah, I mean, since the custodian was the one who developed the Game Boy, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing about Nintendo. Everybody in the company seems to have some proficiency with game design and game programming, and Pixar is the only other company I can think of where everybody in the company is able to participate in their work.
Now, those people who work at Nintendo Treehouse are doing a job that I always wanted to do when I was younger.
And Pixar is the same way. And
but now,
so that new Pixar movie is bombed.
I'm determined to continue this podcast until I reach the level cap. God damn it!
I'm gonna continue recording. I'm gonna keep recording until I run out of things to talk about because I like talking. And the last recording was 2 hours. And I got it down to 1.5 and barely did anything. I didn't cut anything out. I just applied a couple filters, changed some speeds and some pitches, and truncated silence, and then I was done. And editing's easy.
I think the funniest part about this bit is I haven't even listened to one of our podcasts since the 4th episode.
I don't really like listening to podcasts, so I have major difficulties doing it. I have to later, because I need to remember which episode was the one where I talked about Jessica Jones, so I can add a trigger warning to the title.
I used to, when we one thing is when we started. One thing for the viewers, when we first started, Josie always asked me what's if always sent me ahead of time a private link to the video for me to approve her edits of it or whatever beforehand. We don't do that anymore because I basically just stopped watching them.
I'm
stopped listening.
And I'm taking anxiety medication now, so I don't care.
Is it anti-anxiety medication really? It's anti-anxiety, right?
Yes, they don't make medication that gives people anxiety, do they?
I think it might be a side effect for some medication, but that's not. Well, they don't give it to you to make anxiety, but I think it could be a side effect of an unwanted side effect of some medications.
Oh hey, two of Yugi's new monsters from the movie are out. Well, not the cards themselves aren't out, but like we know what they're going to be.
What are they?
Bad.
What?
They're bad.
Tell me.
Lemon Magician Girl and Apple Magician Girl.
Okay, I'm digging this. What are they?
We don't know anything about them. Um, except that Lemon Magician Girl is a level 2 light effect monster and probably going to be a spellcaster. They are going to be resembling dark magician monsters, obviously, and I'm a big. I wouldn't mean that they were bad per se. I'm just confused why Yugi's central archetype seems to be fruit-related dark magician knockoffs. But whatever.
Well, hey, they just can't wait. Yugi just can't wait to get his hands on you.
It's like po- uh post DM Yugi is unexplored territory that we've never seen before. Honestly, like we do know some of the cards he used in the present day of the GX era. We know some of the cards he uses. But we don't. But see, like we've seen art for this that indicates that it's like not as far into the. It's like okay, so like Yugi doesn't look that much older than he was in the original anime. So like this isn't as far into the future as GX. The timeline in Yu-Gi-Oh is very complicated because as far as I can tell, it actually looks like Ixie monsters came out in the Yu-Gi-Oh card in the Dual Monsters in Universe card game before Synchro Monsters. A lot of the mechanics of fusion monsters whose cards aren't seen in the anime is actually more similar to Ixie's monsters, Gate Guardian in particular. And yeah, just it's very strange, and the pendulum monster mechanic actually seems to fit a lot in the Yu-Gi-Oh also. So I don't know if that's Konami actively trying to make the card game more similar to the show or not, but it's just something I've noticed. And at this time, I have not yet figured out a way to make the Dual Monsters era show make any more sense by retconning a card into a Synchro Monster. So while Synchro Monsters aren't a bad thing, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is at this time it seems that the Ixie's mechanic and possibly even the Pendulum mechanic were introduced in universe before Synchro Monsters.
I've done it. I hit the level cap.
Woohoo! Also, one last thing before we go, because I think you said that's when we were going to go. 5Ds, I have recently found out. Apparently, there was a line where Jack acknowledges the game's immense amounts of feature creep. I mean, not feature creep, power creep. You can probably clarify this. Team Tato, is it? They
used a whole bunch of weak normal monsters.
They used a whole bunch of weak normal monsters and even a couple spell and trap cards from the earliest booster packs of the game that they found in the garbage. I believe that's the gimmick behind Yusei's cards, also correct? That he found his cards in trash.
Similar, but Yusei actually had good cards.
Yes, Yusei actually had good cards, but Team Tato's cards are like actual trash cards. Like you can't really imagine why Yusei's cards would be in the trash. It's just kind of in the theming. But like Team Tato's cards, they're actually trash. These are the cards that Yugi, Mokuba, and Tristan use in the video games. These are just awful cards.
Yeah. These are just level 1 monsters, basically.
And their entire strategy revolves around protecting these normal monsters for 20 turns, and then tribute summoning a monster that can only be summoned by tributing a low-level normal monster that has been on the field for 20 turns.
Yeah, a low normal monster that's been on the field for 20 turns.
Now, apparently, the guy who summons it in the show is the first person in history to have ever summoned it. So
Sleeping Giant. Sleeping Giant Sud is
That's a pretty. So like we're evoking Exodia here. We're really evoking Exodia here. These are old cards being used to do a thing that no one else has been able to do, and apparently no one's even bothered. And
basically, so the history behind Sleeping Giant Sud is the most powerful monster in all of Duel Monsters. Its power is said to rival the Egyptian god cards. It's also one of the most common cards, and it also has the steepest summoning conditions of any card.
Yep. there's evidence to suggest that the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon is one of the more common cards in the anime because it's also impossible to summon.
There isn't a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon card in the anime.
In the Virtual World arc where Kaiba is explaining his plan to take over the company, he has all those cards laid out, and one of them is a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon.
Huh. Because usually they just fuse monsters, whatever, and they don't have to have fusion monster cards.
That's kind of why they don't go into detail explaining the mechanics of the game because they can't really explain how fusion monsters work because there is absolutely no way at all Yugi would have had it's like ritual monster cards and fusion monster cards and all of these cards, none of them work, none of them make sense. The extra deck summoning gimmicks in the anime seem to think that the cards seem to exist and also not exist, and they seem to just materialize, and it's very confusing. It's very strange. I choose to headcanon that fusion monster cards do exist, but cannot for the life of me figure out how or why. Anyway, we got off track. So according to the wiki or something, somewhere I'm reading, Jack explains that at one point these cards were these cards that Team Tato uses were considered usable, playable by the power curve, but as the game expanded and grew.
I don't think he said that. I think he stated that they were never useful because these are all cards that would have never have been useful even in the early even in the early games.
Yeah,
they would have never been useful.
Yeah, apparently Celtic Guardian was where the power curve was originally. So cards like Change Slime and Skull Servant were just always useless. And nowadays, Celtic Guardian is useless. Yeah. So one could make.
I'm not sure Dark Magician is useful anymore.
Dark Magician is not useful in itself, but its archetype and support makes it useful.
I'm not sure that's true anymore. I know Blue Eyes White Dragon is used in certain dragon summoning decks.
Yes.
In combination with combos. I don't know if the same exists for Dark Magician.
Not really. It's gotten to the point where a lot of Dark Magician support doesn't even specify that the card has to be Dark Magician because no one wants to use Dark Magician unless they're specifically making a Yugi themed deck, which a lot of people do. A lot of people like doing that. I am interested in the idea of putting together good decks based on the anime characters, but I can't even put together a good deck based for myself yet, so I'm still working that out. But it's pretty ironic that the cards that used to be good are now pretty bad, and it's getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh! Crush Card virus. Crush Card. I recently found out that the Crush Card virus has had its effect nerfed because its original effect benefited your opponent more than it hurt them.
Oh?
Yeah, you know the game is bad when one of the game's earliest broken, overpowered anime cards that had to have its effect nerfed and it was still overpowered had to have its effect nerfed even more because of how much it benefited your opponent. Because from what I can tell from researching the metagame is that it's actually beneficial to have your monsters in a graveyard. So cards like Crush Card Virus that dump all of your opponent's monsters into the graveyard are actually not good. How did we get to this point? And more disturbing, why is this the franchise Konami showing the most respect to? How did this happen? Why is this happening?
And now it's time.
Why is Ectoplasmer in Yugi's Battle City deck in the Yugi's Legendary deck collection? Yugi hated that card. He hated that card. For no reason.
I think it's time to call quits though.
Alright, I do apologize for talking about card games so much. I am working on that card game themed show. I am working on it, and it'll be ready eventually. So now I have a 2.5-hour podcast to work on. But luckily, there's not as much rush. So yeah. Closing statements.
That's my closing statements. I'm tired.
Yes.
My sleeping schedule's been off the chain.
I woke up early for the first time in months, or weeks, or days, or some. I don't know what time.
I woke up at 2 a.m.
I woke up at 8, and I've only had 2 energy drinks today, and about 500 calories of candy. No, 1,100 calories of candy. I've had too much candy.
Yeah.
Well, I fucked up the diet today. Well, I had a turkey sandwich earlier, before the podcast. Yeah. So.
I'm making weird noises now. I'm gonna go.
Hold on. Wait. Before you go, make some more weird noises.
Please, no.
Okay.
Do you want me to make the sex noises like I did for that video series that I did?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Hamburgers.